What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Bruce, this is What's Popping, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make not one, not two, but 3 custom Funko Pops for your Game of Thrones collection. That is right, guys. After our Direwolf Funko Pop video, we are diving straight back in with another Game of Thrones custom Funko Pop tutorial. So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to make Catelyn Stark, Mance Rayder, and Loras Tyrell. All 3 of these were a ton of fun to make, and I hope you guys will enjoy making them just as much as I did. And if you don't want to make them, just hang around and check them out, because I think they came out pretty well and there's some really cool Funko figures. So let's start off with Mance Rayder, guys, because Mance was a lot of fun to make, and I'm going to start rolling the footage so you guys can see how we went about making him. Of course, going through the process of separating the head and the body. If you want to see more on that and exactly how I do it, I did a video where I go a bit more in depth about how to swap out heads and bodies. I'll leave a link to it at the top here, you can definitely check it out. But we went ahead and used Eugene from The Walking Dead as the head and Tormund Giantsbane for the base. So as always, guys, with these, try and make sure that you plan a couple of customs in advance. I have a plan. I have a plan for the body for Eugene, and that's going to be used in a future video. I don't have a plan for Tormund's head just yet, but I'll find somewhere for it to go. And yeah, so once you've removed your head and your body, you're going to go ahead, give the figure a scrub, and make sure you remove that sort of layer that Funko put over there to protect that paint. It just makes the paint application that little bit easier before you go ahead and start painting your figure. What's great about Mance is you only have to paint the head. The body is done, sorted, ready to go, and you can dive straight into doing that head. Right, so what we did for the head with Mance was go ahead and start off with a pencil. Guys, whenever you're working with these and you want to play around with designs, pencils are your friends. You can rub them out, you can erase them, you can change them, and it helps a lot with getting that sort of basic design for your head. So what we did was we used the pencil to design his, you know, a bit of aging where he was. We actually used the Tormund figure as a point of reference on his face, where you can put those lines to make the figure look a little bit more aged. So that's what we did with him, just to give him that sort of aged figure, that aged appearance. And once that was done, we used a fine liner over it to sort of concrete it in, make it a bit more permanent, and have it, you know, ready for a long shelf life as an out-of-box pop in my collection. From there, we went on to mix the paint for his beard. Now, mixing the paint for his beard was a bit of a challenge to get the coloring just right, but once we got it right, we used it throughout the rest of the figure. So this is a very key step to get right, because once you get that done, you're going to use that for his beard, you're going to use it for his eyebrows, and you're going to use it for the hair as well. So what we did with that was we used a sponge, as we've done previously for one of the Walking Dead figures that I showed off, and we used that sponge to just go around the face and just create that sort of like stubbly appearance that you get for Mance throughout the series. So we used that to create that stubble, then went back to using a nice fine paintbrush to get those eyebrows done nicely and neatly, get them done as closely as possible to cover the brown from Eugene, and I think that came out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the stubbly look. I know we don't get too many Funkos that have a, you know, the paint lines on most Funko Pops are quite clean, so this one's pushing the envelope a little bit in terms of customs to push it out there and make it a figure that is not necessarily conforming to all of Funko's rules, but I like that vibe of that sort of stubbly 5 o'clock shadow look that we have going on with Mance here. And then what was fun was to create the paint that had a bit of two-toning in it, so we could see a bit of grey, a bit of white, and that was really key for me in getting this figure correctly done. From there, we just felt that he wasn't quite complete. The perfectly black hair from Eugene didn't quite work, so we went ahead and again used a sponge like we had done on his face, and went ahead and covered the hair with that layer. So you have the black hair shining through, but you also have that darker grey. It almost looks like a bit of a bluey grey, which is fine because it fits in with the snow. So it could be a bit of snow in the hair. It's a bit of salt and pepper, and it's a bit of that dark hair, which is the base. So I think that came out quite well. What you can do with these as well is use your finger to smooth it. So we did use the finger to smooth certain areas on the hair where we weren't quite happy with how the sponge had put it there. And it came out pretty well, guys, I must say. If we look at him on the turntable, I think he looks like a great figure. He was, as I said, a lot of fun to make. The head attached quite nicely. I did have to heat up the body again just to try and push the head in once the head had been completed. But here is Mance Rayder, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. He was so much fun to make. I think he's pretty true to the character, and I think what's really key with this figure is making sure you get those aging lines right, and then just getting your grey and white paint correctly mixed. Once you've done that, you've won half the battle. And if you're going to use a sponge to try and get that sort of mottled look for his beard and that stubble, that's a tip that I would definitely recommend. But again, you can go with the good old-fashioned Funko rules and just go ahead and paint it on. It's really up to you, and that's the fun of these custom figures. It's really up to you as to how much effort you want to put in, how Funko accurate you want to be, how movie accurate you want to be, and you can have a lot of fun and a lot of leeway doing it. Next up, guys, we're going to have a look at Catelyn Stark. Now, this is one of my favorite customs that is in my collection. It was a ton of fun to make, and not as hard as you might think. We went through a few trials and tribulations in just getting the formula right, but once we got that correct formula, we were incredibly happy with her. And we basically just used the two Elsas from the new, the two Annas, sorry, from the new Frozen range, and swapped the heads and bodies on those. So we swapped those around, and that gave us the essence of our figure. Now, before I went into actually attaching the head, we did go ahead and paint the body first. So the body we did first, we painted in this nice black. Again, guys, I cannot recommend dollar paints enough. That was where we found a lot of trial and error with this figure. Was we had the freckles on her face, and I'll get to how we got rid of those in a second, but we tried using a paint other than dollar to paint her face over those freckles, and it was absolutely terrible. It didn't dry smoothly. It looked shocking. We had to sand her face to get rid of those freckles, and to get rid of that paint first of all, and it was just an absolute nightmare. So try as much as you can. I know dollar paint's a bit more expensive, but it is a great acrylic and awesome for these customs. So we went ahead with her body and did a plain black paint job right across her dress, and went all the way up her neck as well, even, because if you look at the pictures that we used for our inspiration anyways for her, she's always wearing sort of neck high outfits and something that covers her neck. So we went ahead and used that in our design when we went ahead and painted this. And then once we painted the whole thing black, to go back and add detail to the figure, we decided that being from the north, being a Stark, silver is so iconic and so important to the Stark. You look at that direwolf sigil, and it has always got silver involved with that direwolf. So we went back with the silver and decided to give her a pair of gloves, which I think came out quite nicely, to give her a bit of braiding across the edge of her robe with that silver as well, and then just added our own little details. We tried to put a little crest, which I think came out quite nicely on her breast over there, which came out quite well, and a few little extra details with that silver, just to give that feeling of embroidery on the dress, as well as sort of a feeling of her being a higher ranking member of society, not just wearing a plain dress. All of her dresses were really intricate in the show, and that's something we tried to replicate by still keeping it simple with just using the black and the silver, which we mixed using those dollar paints as well. So that was the body, and the body, again, it was fairly simple once we found the formula for it. The head was a little bit more complicated. We had to get her hair color right, and that took a little bit of mixing with the dollar paints as well as then getting rid of those freckles. Now, the way we got rid of those freckles, I did allude to it earlier, was we tried to paint over them, didn't work at all, ended up sanding the paint off, and when we sanded the paint off, we found out that you can actually sand the freckles off as well. So we used the sandpaper to get rid of those freckles, and again, guys, I've said this before, I will say it again, the less you can do on your figure to achieve what you're trying to do, the better. Less is definitely more. If you don't need to add extra paint to change the skin color, don't. If you don't need to add something to the sculpt to make it better, try not to. It is really a case of less is more with these, and once we got that together, it worked out really well. We then went ahead, and once we got that hair color right, once we got rid of the freckles, we did what we did with Mance Rayder as well, using that pencil to get those age lines and some sort of crow's feet on the side of our eyes, and then went ahead and added added them on permanently with a fine line. And I think she came out really well, guys. I'm really happy with this figure. I love that the hair is sort of flowing. It gives that vibe of being in the north where the wind is always blowing, and there's sort of an ominous vibe in that first season of Game of Thrones where everything's building and the sort of chess pieces are all being put into place. And I think this figure kind of captures that quite well. It might be my imagination or me pushing it a bit far, because I'm just really happy with this custom and how she came out. But I think she's really cool, and again, really, really strange that Funko didn't go ahead and make a Catelyn Stark in the first place. But thank goodness we have customs, we have paint jobs that we can apply, and we have our own creativity that we can use to put together some really cool figures. Then last up for today, guys, we have Loras Tyrell. Now, Loras Tyrell was again a bit of a challenge, and the challenge for him was finding the right head. My friend Jess, who's done a lot of customs as well, has done her own Loras Tyrell, and she used David Luiz from Chelsea, and I think that came out really nicely. I couldn't find a David Luiz, and I went scouring around looking for something that I thought would work, and ended up settling on a UFC fighter. I completely am going to butcher his name if I say it, so I'm not even going to try. Leave it in the comments down below how you say it, because the name completely escapes me. But he had the perfect hairstyle for me for Loras Tyrell as a Knight of the Flowers, and he was again within my price range that I was willing to spend on doing a custom figure. So we went ahead, I beheaded him. I now have a UFC body that I'm not quite sure what to do with just yet, but I will figure it out, and I'll come up with a cool custom for that. And then we used the body of Brienne of Tarth. So Brienne of Tarth, we took her apart, and I've got her head set aside for another project that we're going to be doing, and we'll be showing you right here on the channel at some point soon in the future. So then we went ahead with our Loras Tyrell, and we started with the body because we knew the head was going to be a bit of a challenge with the beard and getting that hair color just right. So we started with the body, and basically just replaced a lot of the gold and bronze that Brienne was wearing with that silver that is so iconic of Loras as Knight of the Flowers. And we used a picture of him from the show. We used a bit of concept art as well and put those two together for how we were going to go ahead and put him together. And I'm pretty happy with how the paint job turned out. We used a lot of silver and really just replacing a lot of Brienne's browns, bronzes and sort of golds with that silver to give that sort of sheen and that pop that he had for his appearance as Knight of the Flowers. It's not as shiny, it's not as bold. A metallic paint job might have done something a little bit more along those lines, but I'm happy with how he turned out, and I'm really happy with how the body turned out for this figure in particular. If we move on to the head, that I said was a little bit more of a challenge, but at this stage we had figured out that you can remove the beard using sandpaper, because we were really worried about having to go and paint over this beard and over the face, because it would just completely change the texture of the figure and throw the contrast off. So we were thankful that we figured out our little sandpaper trick and went ahead and sanded his beard off completely, and I think it came out really well. You can't really see where the sanding took place. We did it very gently and very slowly, and it very slowly but surely removed that sanding. Once that was done, all that was left to do was go ahead and get the hair color right, bit of mixing, a bit of playing around, and then going ahead and putting 2 or 3 coats over that blonde hair, just to make it a little bit darker and have that sort of brownie, I want to say brownie blonde that sort of he verges on and off throughout the series. So that's what we based it on. I think it came out pretty well. If we look at him on the turntable here, and I'll put a picture of the concept art there right next to it, I think he came out nicely, and I'm very happy with this figure. The head fits on really nicely, it swivels well. There are a couple of figures that I found once making the customs that the heads don't fit on so well. What I recommend there, guys, if you can, is just to heat the body up a little bit more and then push the head back in. I will leave a link up here already, as I have, to some earlier custom videos that I show you some tips and tricks for early paint jobs and when you're learning how to do your paint jobs, as well as doing body swaps and head swaps and that kind of thing. So that is there for you guys to check out. I hope you enjoyed these customs. They were a lot of fun to make. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing how they were made. If you don't anticipate making them, I hope you just enjoyed seeing some different Game of Thrones pops, and it's almost like seeing concept art for what could have been, because I'm pretty sure Funko are done with their Game of Thrones line for the time being anyway. So that about does for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you did, please go ahead, do all the YouTube cliches, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see all of you guys in the next video.